All right, go ahead.
My name is Yehoshua. Thank you so much. With every presentation I give, I really want to thank the host. So a roaring, perhaps even a standing ovation, tremendous round of applause for Pep. Yo, get up, come on, round of applause. Woo! Hey! Woo! Woo! So, yeah, no, thanks. Wonderful crowd. I'm very excited to and honored to be a part of this group. So I've been doing analytics for about 7 years. Is that true? 8, right? So I'm still kind of young industry-wise, but I've put in my 10,000 hours, so I hopefully have what to share with you. I'm going to be focused on Google Analytics because it's what most people use, but the concepts that I'm going to be talking about can be extended to any of your analytics platforms, okay? So what am I going to do? I'm going to really tell you about why analytics is important, right? Because you already know why it's important, but I'm going to create a framework for it. That framework really ties into Pep's keynote from yesterday where he talked about research, okay? And we're going to talk about ways that you can actually do research with analytics to help get conversion wins right off the bat. And we're going to talk about how proper segmentation and a proper plan in terms of your digital measurement strategy is going to allow you to really measure the impact of your conversion tests. Okay? So analytics is about understanding and optimizing, which is why I feel that it's so appropriate for a conversion, optimization conference to be talking about that. We're really talking about business optimization. And analytics has a number of different pieces. Brian talked about this. You're going to have the quantitative and the qualitative data. So just to set your expectations, I'm going to be talking about the quantitative data. There's been a lot of good talk about the qualitative. Okay, so hopefully this will fit that niche in terms of understanding within the traditional web analytics technology stack. As we're building out what we're going to measure, okay, this is really important. I want to set a kind of a framework for everybody that you should be thinking about your strategy before any form of implementation. So Pep said something yesterday where he said, track everything. And I think what he meant to say is track everything important. Okay, because that's right. So track everything that's important. Now he brought an example of heap analytics, which I have not tried, where it's this concept of I'm going to track everything in granular detail and then figure out later. Right? I don't believe in that as an approach to digital analytics. I think that analytics needs to be able to answer business questions. That's what it's for. Okay? So before you begin instrumenting your tool and being able to get answers from it, you have to be able to ask those questions. So my friend Caleb put together this web analytics planning process. Okay? And it's really, really critical. So what we're going to see in this presentation are going to be a lot of techniques. My presentation style is to be very tactical, kind of say, this is how you can approach things, but I want the strategy to be there in the back of your mind that before you start getting that data out, right, your research is going to be thin if you don't have these first steps of business goals and supporting questions, right? If you just throw that Google Analytics tag up onto your website, it'll be okay-ish, but it won't be right for your business and it won't be right for your clients. And that's really critical to think about in terms of a process. So that process, my friend Daniel, this is a good video that he works for Google and on the analytics team, and he talks about segmentation in 2 types, right? He talks about mission-driven and ad hoc, right? The ad hoc segmentation are the things that you can get directly out of, let's say, your standard analytics tool just by looking at a plain implementation, where the mission-driven means that I have a goal, a strategy. Again, it needs to stem from those business objectives. So if you're seeing things in my presentation today that are not part of your analytics implementation, right, that's okay, because it just means that you have to take a step back and say, well, what sort of questions do I want to answer? Okay? Now, when it comes to optimizing, let's say, website performance, okay? Within a data framework, we think of acquisition, behavior, and conversions, okay? Now, the GA team actually just fit all their reports with that. They put it into the ABCs. So this is important. The performance marketing aspect of analytics is a good way to boost your revenues, to boost your profits. Okay, let's give an example. Did a search a little while ago for wedding shoes. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 different landing pages that show up in Google. Here, we're not actually choosing what those landing pages are. The algorithm is. Right? So David's bridal comes up, some nice shoes. The flip-flops, I guess, is for the Southern Cal wedding. Okay. Number 2 is Zappos, who's just is a big winner, right, in terms of relevancy of that experience. Number 3, right down in the 4th slot there, is Nina shoes, right, which is not relevant at all. However, they do have relevant products and make really quite nice shoes. So for a company like Nina, they should be able to see in their web analytics based upon, some key indicators. All right? Right now we're starting simple. Bounce rate. Right? So using like a weighted sort in bounce rate by landing page can give you an idea of like, do I have a relevancy problem of my landing page against the keywords that are bringing in organic traffic, right? Right now I'm thinking just about SEO, because we can actually make a difference there, and we did that with this. We said, that's the wrong landing page. How can we change our on-page SEO strategy, and perhaps some off-page things as well, to make sure that the correct page, the most relevant page, is ranking in Google for our search term, right? This is, again, that same general framework: acquisition, behavior, conversions, and right here you can see I kind of highlighted, do we have a relevancy issue with this landing page with a higher bounce rate? And I want to explore, how do I drive more traffic to these stronger converting landing pages, okay? And a really good way to do this, which I didn't include in this slide because it's a big, big spreadsheet, right? It's to do a VLOOKUP between your landing page performance reports with your Google Webmaster Tools reports, because we don't have keywords anymore. But the keywords are there. So if you want to understand what's the relevancy issue, you're going to have to look into your Webmaster Tools and just use that primary key, that VLOOKUP, against that landing page, and then you actually see which keywords are working. Something interesting that I came across, and again, we're still in SEO here, is that, that before the person gets to your site, even on Google search, can really set their expectations. So here's a title tag test. Right? Now, the purpose of doing this title tag test was not to improve relevancy, it was to improve traffic. Right? We wanted to get more traffic, but it actually made a difference in conversion, right? Which I found to be quite fascinating, that same page, just by changing the title tag and what people were seeing in relationship to their search, and it's even more true when it comes to the landing pages that you have control over, which is PPC in particular. Okay? And really, to understand your site, too much detail isn't going to get you too far, right? You can cherry pick the first 10, 20, 30 pages, but you really want to see it in groups, right? Which types of pages do I want to focus on? So here's landing pages by, is it my category pages or my product pages, right? Leading to having good categorization will lead to awesome segmentation capabilities. Okay, now segmentation is, it's the heart of digital analytics, right? You're really not going to be able to do much effectively without being able to segment. And part of that segmentation is categorization and having good structured data, okay? So these segmentation, in terms of tactically, can be done for landing pages with the content groupings in Google Analytics. You can also, here we're seeing the content categories as custom dimensions. Some fine differences between them, and I can talk to you about them afterwards. So now I want to move on to some other sorts of metrics like bounce rate and time, okay? Again, we're starting kind of basic here. As everybody knows, bounce rate as it relates to time is a I think, because it's a 0 if I have no interactive hit on the page, so my time on site is 0. So it's fairly worthless. And so even that last page that's being viewed in the first set, right? That's a 10-minute visit, even though they're on that page for 5 minutes. But then there's another problem. Raise your hand if you ever used tabs in your browser. These people don't use tabs, right? Yeah, you, man. So tabs browsing, right? Am I even looking at that window? Okay? So Adobe actually came out with a plugin 2 days ago at Adobe Summit, which does something like this, which is page visibility. Right? With modern browsers, there's something called a page visibility API. And you can see, is that browser hidden or visible? Right? So it's a much more useful time metric. Right? This is basically how it works. Like if the page is hidden, then becomes visible, I have to say how much time was it hidden and vice versa. Right? There's some basic logic. And then we make sure to send the data in a technical way to Google when the page closes or unloads. That means that you actually X'd out, and you can still get a page timestamp. Okay? But that will give you an average time on page. Don't forget the averages suck, right? You can actually Google like averages suck, and you'll get a lot of pretty good articles that talk about why averages suck, okay? So here I'm using a user timings API to be able to see for one of my most popular blog posts, how much time are people actually spending on the page. If you remember from over here, you see that middle? That's bounce sessions with page visible. Are people reading this? Okay? Now, remember, it's not fully indicative of reading. We're going to talk about how there's other user interactions because time metrics are so-so, right? What I really need to do is look at my broader business objectives. This, if you're a publisher, makes a lot more difference, okay? This is from a user ID view, right, in GA. So if you want to get actually that user level data, you have to have it be a user ID view. A little tip would be to, if you don't have any form of logged in experience and you can't get that, this sort of report, take your client ID and pass it into the user ID, and you'll be able to open up a couple more reports for that same browser, but they're still better. It's incrementally better in terms of data quality, right? This is in beta now. It just came out. It's a much better way to look at your cohort analysis. What type of content am I producing that's leading to those darker blue squares that are leading to people to come back to my site over time and to consume more content, right? Because we ultimately want our data, if you're a publisher and content site, to look like this, right? That's what's going to drive your revenue, to have loyal readers. Think about your favorite news site, right? They're making money off of you because that's the one that you go to often, okay? Yeah, and those are the segments that are going to find the revenue. Okay, so it's really, again, based upon the content that you're categorizing, you're going to actually be able to see, like, is this working for my objectives? Okay? Michelle Kiss over at Web Analytics Demystified does, I have the same list, but she just put it much better. So take a look at her article about things that are better than time on site, because there's different objectives. Again, you're going to hear me say that, like, what are your objectives? What are you trying to measure? What are your KPIs? So any of these lists, I'm not going to read them to you, are really going to be, probably for even content sites, going to be much more important, with the exception of the pure publishers where the page views are actually dealing the revenue. That's why ad revenue per session, that's a much better metric, or ad revenue over customer life, right? For Zagat, this is something that we did with them, right? We try to say what is important for your site. But they actually have different teams. So in different views, we have different, what we call session scoring. So this is for the product team. They want to know, what is their goal? And so I asked them, I was like, well, what is your goal? And they said, well, we really want people to find a restaurant, that's something, or some other hotel or something that's useful to them. Okay, so that we then scored, if somebody goes to the site, that's a 5. If somebody actually makes a reservation or orders online, that's a 10. If somebody emails that to a friend, that was useful to them. Okay? And that session scoring, then we can look at it by channel, because you've just figured out within that session what's going to be most valuable. Okay? And again, let's take a look at social. Social is like, ooh, that's not a good channel. But that's not a good channel for the product team. But it is a good channel for the content team who has different goals. So they're going to see something different in their view because we made planning in advance of, like, well, how am I going to set up my goals to measure my objectives? Okay? Taking it one step deeper in terms of segmentation, this is something that I always, in any e-commerce situation that I set up, is always doing a goal for each step in your funnel. Okay, this is going to allow you to do a lot better segmentation across your channels, across your geographies, anything that's going to be a primary dimension. Okay, I'm going to go through this quick because Brian mentioned it a bit in terms of segmenting by by browser. People have mentioned that, right? Segmenting deeper, right? Browser by channel, okay? Segmenting by screen resolution, right? Okay, this is kind of ugly. Make sure to put things into Excel and use conditional formatting, because if you want to have the data speak to you or you're going to share it with somebody, okay, that's going to be important. Segmentation by ethnicity, all right? Now, that's not available in GA, right? But for this particular website, that was important, and this is affirmative information that was provided to me, okay? And there's two ways to capture that. You can just scrape it off the form when somebody submits it, or it's better within your customer database. And this will lead to a lot of deeper insights, especially when we're talking about how to measure the impact of your tests, because I know a lot of people here are really focused on, okay, now I'm going to start getting some ideas, I'm going to test it, like, is it impacting different segments, okay? Here's something that will actually, again, lead to a very quick win, making sure that you have properly set up funnels. Relatively basic, right? Are people dropping out of the building stage? That's bad. You actually can't see that on the screen. That's too bad. You can see on this screen, right? The loop, that's also bad when people are going to review. So what's going on there? You see where I put that careful note about the sample data? Okay, so these sorts of flow reports in Google Analytics are pretty. They're nice eye candy, but they will be less reliable because of data sampling. And that's one of the reasons why I do like to have the horizontal funnels, because within at least a certain data set, you're going to be able to see something very similar, even though your data is not sampled there. So what do we do in this case when I saw people are looping through? If people are dropping out, I need to do something on that page. I need to look at that page in particular. If people are looping through, I need to actually look at that session. So we've discussed session recording, right? Pep actually told me about this tool in Specklet, and I like it. It does a good job. One of the things that I kind of highlighted there, you can segment within it. You can have tags. And this leads to what I think is actually the most important slide to me in this presentation. Raise your hand if you've not heard of Gary Angel. A lot of people. If you're interested in digital analytics, he is the king. Like, I can say that. Gary Angel, he's not so active on Twitter, so I'm just like, I'll tweet him. But go to Symphonic, his blog. Tremendous, really high-level stuff. And he describes segmentation as a two-tiered process, right? Your visitor segmentation based upon your personas or the relationship, that's a person, right? And your unit of work segmentation, that's going to be the behavioral capture, right? In Google Analytics, that's going to be modeled by event tracking or page views. What are people doing? How do I infer intent or understand the user behavior on the site, right? So I really just kind of sit with this, right? Two-tiered segmentation is either going to be visitor-based, a relationship, who is this person, or the unit of work, okay? That's going to lead to something like this, okay? The customer segmentation. So when I'm running tests, those tests are going to perform differently against different segments. Now, Brian mentioned something like new and returning users, right? That's okay, and it's important, and you should do that if you don't have back-end integration. But you need the back-end integration. You have to know the customer by their number of purchases, by their lifetime value, their frequency to purchase, right? If they have affirmative information that they provided you, like their gender, they said, I am a male. That's actually pretty important. And look what I segmented it by, right? We're talking retail here. This is the seasonality of the products, right? Is it my 2015 spring line, my 2014 holiday line? And how are my products themselves related to, my merchandise, what I'm offering in relationship to my customers, right? So even thinking about the types of decisions before you start testing and seeing, well, how did it impact these different segments? You're going to be able to see, how are my merchandising decisions impacting my different customers? Because they're not all equal. And that can lead to smarter decisions and smarter merchandising decisions, okay? So the reason I put that slide up earlier, because I can take that same data segmentation and map it right into Specklet, right? Having a data collection strategy where you're thinking about that mission-driven segmentation can allow me to have all that customer data and product-level data directly into any sort of tool, right? You think about it comprehensively in terms of like, what do I need to know about my business? That all goes into any sort of tool that you're implementing, okay? we talked a bit about device category, right? Now, something that came, when I say we, like, the royal we, the conversion XL, a lot of people are talking about devices. With devices, there's two aspects, and I didn't create the slide for it because I think it's a little bit too kitschy to talk about, is the session dead, right? It's a little bit, fishing for it too much. And I think the answer is more so than it ever used to be, this concept of an arbitrary, 30 minutes with activity or non-activity on the site. Because what's happening here is that we see that, the mobile certainly has a much lower conversion rate. But the question is, where are they at in the process of their customer journey, right? So I think the session's not dead in degree it's money on the table. It's money on the table right now. If the person can't actually take an action that they might actually want to take, maybe they don't. Maybe they're just actually looking on the site and they're not actually intending to buy from you now. But if you can make it easy for them to buy from you now, that's money right now. It's a big win, and you need to be segmenting by device. But this, for many retailers, is more of a reality. Okay, and this is difficult to measure. I think Google Analytics does a very so-so job of measuring it, even though this is a GA report. Right? Better than it used to be. We should be really thankful for a free tool that's giving us this level of insights into the user behavior. But look at paid analytics tools that will actually be able to backstitch your visitor ID, or do it yourself. Right? Take your client ID and your user ID, store them both in custom dimensions, and export all that data and do some real analysis outside of the data collection tool. Okay? GA is a great, powerful database with good data visualization capabilities, but you need to know its limitations. And from a data collection perspective, it's really a big database. You can pull out a lot of that information. Here's a segment, something to just think about when you do have your user ID configured. Show me a sequential segment where one of, let's say, an acquisition action. That user came on a mobile device and then they came back on a desktop, right? So really, cross-device measurement is, I think, pretty important. Okay. I talked about things being incremental, right, in terms of insights, and so that's how I tend to describe event tracking, right, to clients, and to myself. When we're being able to track the behavioral interactions with users on the site, it's giving me more and more and more insights. Okay. This, THIS, right? Anything that your customers, your users, your prospects, the people using your site are seeing, make sure you're capturing that, right? Michael, I think, mentioned error, finding where the errors are, right? Well, was that Michael or Pep? Yeah, Michael mentioned errors, right? And, we found this, but what if your web analytics was just telling you what the error was? Invalid login or password, I think, was yours thing. Well, it's right there. You can see where that's happening and what the traffic source is. Remember, this is now in the framework of your analytics. You can create a segment. Where is this happening? Coupon codes. Do we want to be using coupon codes? Stock. Which products are they getting this out of stock message that they're actually trying to add to their cart? Right? Brian talked about 404 errors. I think it's really important. I recommend using event tracking instead of page views for it, because then you can quickly take that information out and put it into a pivot table. So you can see, is it an internal link problem or is it external? And am I just made a bunch of money by saved a bunch of money from giving it to Google to have it go to 404 page on a CPC? Amy had mentioned navigational priority, right, in terms of refines, right? So here, by adding simple event tracking to what people are refining on, we can see what's being most used in relationship to what are my actual refine orders. What do people look for and what do they want, right? With GA, it's kind of, these numbers aren't real, it's sessionized numbers, but you can see Ecommerce as a tab on event tracking. So if you want to talk about data scope, we can do that outside of the concept of the confines of this discussion. But that's an action item, right? Test reordering what people actually want, see if that's going to make a change in your conversion rates. Or product presentation. This is a category page. Here, we're using ClickTail, right? And I I heard today that it sucks and any sort of heat mapping. But in this case, they're actually seeing that people are looking. They're going to the bottom of the page, continuing to look. But in terms of my bestsellers or my regular products, or where are people choosing to either buy or to click, right? We can measure that with event tracking. Now, this is a little bit of an outdated slide. I think I included it because it's pretty. It has like a heat map. but really what I want to use within the GA framework is going to be the enhanced e-commerce platform, right? Because enhanced e-commerce is able to show you in a better way the impressions and the actions, which translate into a business language of options, choices, and decisions, okay? Yeah, I bought pepIsAwesome.com. And we're going to be creating user-generated content at the end of the conference. So I am the moderator. Thank you, Leho. So Pep is awesome. Okay, so that's GoDaddy is the master of upsells, and everyone's using cross-sells. How do I increase my average basket value, right? That you might also like. So with GA's enhanced e-commerce, you can see that CTR on a list level. Oh, my products. And I can actually see which individual product was viewed and clicked through, okay? So this is really strong. You can actually optimize your recommendation engine, right? Raise your hand if you've ever seen some sort of like completely left field recommendation to you when you're on the site, like, oh, buy this too. Only Lucas, okay? So, right, you can fix that. Many of these recommendation engines have levers that you can pull, and you can say, yeah, don't show this product, right? A real insight that I received was from Vicky Brock at eMetrics in London, which is the same thing with returns, right? Same things with returns, and I think Andre mentioned returns. You don't want to put the products that are going to be getting returned in your recommendation engine either, especially if they're going to click through, okay? Another e-commerce example, the full flow of that product performance. I can see that when it was viewed, when it was added to cart, when it was purchased, and those click cart to detail and buy to detail rates, those are new in GA, right, this year, and that's wonderful, right, propensity to purchase, how likely. So when Michael mentioned, what are the best-selling products, I'm going to move those to my homepage. How about the most likely to be purchased products and move those to the homepage, okay? As you saw, that last little note said, it's still, the data isn't quite right because we're looking at views instead of unique views. So you can just, within your custom dimensions, look at your calculated add to cart rate and your look to book rate, right? That cart to detail rate. And then you just mix in a little bit of custom metrics, right? And good stew. And what was the last one there? You can't see it. Gross profit, right? If you're doing e-commerce and you don't have profit metrics in your web analytics package, you should consider that. Because really, revenue is not a very good measure of business success. For optimizing your business, you don't optimize your business on revenue, you optimize your business on profit. Okay? So if you're going to do it tactically, right, this will not work. Don't just upload your cost of goods sold in a data upload. You'll see strange things because every page view will end up being calculated and added up. But here's your how-to, a little bit of code. You just, on the thank you page, loop through with all of your products and pass in the value of what your cost of goods sold in and your actual profit margin, which is very important when you're looking at things like middle column. How much should I actually discount that product in relationship to how much profit I made on that product? And I love the far right column where we're looking at the profit per unique page view, right? So now it's not just a propensity to purchase, it's a propensity for profit in terms of that product being seen. So what are we going to do? Advertise, right? Put these things on your homepage splash, right? And be really careful about that discounting aspect, okay? Because discounting will increase, if you want to increase your conversion rate, right, just give it away. That will get you a really, really high conversion rate. But that's not necessarily going to make a big difference in terms of your bottom line, right? So if you're not seeing what is the impact of my discounting on my profit profitability for my particular products. So you're going to be, don't mislead yourself. Like, oh, look how much revenue we just got, and which I've seen so many retailers over the holiday season, right? They went right up, but how much did they just give it away for on Cyber Monday? Okay. Here's one little more piece I'm going to wrap up with. We talked about turning on the lights, okay? And doing so, you can look at your standard reports and get some insight, and then you look at like your pan-session analysis, right? Your multi-channel funnels, and you're going to get like further insights, right? If you have cross-device measurement implemented well, because people are authenticating, so that you're going to get even more insights. So I think it's just levels of wins. So here, we're going to be looking, we see that a particular, let's say, here's this display channel, that content targeting did poor compared to like all the other keywords or search, but it seems to be upper funnel, okay? So I might look at this sort of report and see my placement type and my domain and say, it's a bunch of zeros. I don't know if you can say it's just like almost all zeros, but there are indications of upper funnel success. Now, these might be false, but it could be an indication. It's worth researching and looking into this in terms of performance marketing decisions that you're going to make in terms of your marketing spend. Okay? So in your multi-channel funnels, look at the assisted interactions. Right? If this is higher, it's like, I can actually see with it, again, it depends if you have user ID turned on or not, and I think that there's better tools out there if you really need to be doing this. But this is a win, right? To see that it's actually assisting a lot of other conversions, right? So here's one of my favorite conversion segments, right? Just make sure that you can take your display, if you're doing display, or any other channel, and just say it's not my last interaction, and you can see exactly where it ends up spreading its wealth of, again, it's not a full attribution. You should use attribution modeling tools for that as well to a degree, but don't tell my friend Peter O'Neill. He'll smack me if I mention attribution. In any case, so mission-driven versus an ad hoc segmentation, right? Have a strategy, have a framework. Okay, that's really, really important, because once you get these ideas that you're going to be testing, right, you have to see who's it impacting and where does it touch people at the different frames in their journey. And like, is it impacting a particular behavioral element? Is it impacting a particular customer type? Okay, you can get those easy wins. Many people have mentioned it in terms of cross-browser site errors, technical things. Fix those. Site speed, I think Pep mentioned, huge, right? If it wasn't out of time, I'd go to my computer and add that slide. Those micro conversions, right? Seeing people in the upper funnel, those are really key. Seeing your business for what it is and understanding what are your goals. If you're a publisher, you have very different goals. Even Zagat, their product team and their content team had very different goals, right? So how do you measure those? So a really rich, robust data measurement strategy will lead to the ability to make really good decisions and create good hypotheses. The research will be there, as Pep so artfully shared, and you'll be able to then see a deeper impact, and not be misled by your results. So, thank you so much.